Hi, Chanti.
Hi. So let us start today's.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Shireen.
Hi.
So let us start today's session. Uh, bringing our hands in front of our hearts, closing our eyes, gazing up at the point between the eyebrows, invoking the presence of God and Gurus here with us. Let's pray together, Divine Mother, Heaven,
Divine Mother,
friend, beloved God,
Heavenly Father,
great
and God.
God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar Ji, beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. Dear Master, be with us here today as we meet you through this chapter with all love in our heart filled with devotion. Guide us, accept us, bless us with thy divine joy, thy divine consciousness. May we always follow thy guidance, intuitively received through our deep meditation. Help us to find God in this lifetime. We are thine. Be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let us start with a chant. Thou art the sweetness of my soul. Thou art my life, thou art my love. Thou art the sweetness of my soul. In the Lord my love, in the Lord my love, so sweet, so sweet. Devotee knows how sweet you are. Devotee knows how sweet you are. He knows whom you let know. He knows whom you let know. Thou art my life, thou art my love. Thou art the sweetness which I know see. Thou art my love, thou art the sweetness which I know see. In the thought my mind are brown, in the thought my mind are brown, I taste thy name, so sweet, so sweet. Devotee knows how sweet you are. Devotee knows how sweet you are. He knows whom you let know. He knows whom you let know. Thou art my life, thou art my love. Thou art the sweetness which I know see. Thou art my life, thou art my love. Thou art the sweetness which I know see. In the thought my mind are brown, in the thought my Tuning into this beautiful chant, very sweet, offering the love of your heart at the point between the eyebrows, calling out to God and Gurus. Devotee knows how sweet you are. He knows whom you let know. And he lets know those who are in tune, who are receptive, who meditate, who calm their mind. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have been seeing in all these chapters before how Swamiji felt out of place in this world. Nothing wrong with the world. Everything was just right. The family was right. Somehow he felt he didn't belong. He was seeking something. As he grew up, he realized what it was. It was God, but he didn't know how to seek God. He didn't know if, there's such a thing even exists in the that he grew up. There was no such concept of seeking God, finding God. It was alien to them. But he realized throughout that something was, moving him in a particular direction. And finally, he has come to a stage where he was pushed almost. He says it was almost like force that makes him return a second day. First day he rejects the of a yogi because it says that it is dedicated to an American saint, and he says, American saints, that's not possible, and he walks away. But then next day he says that there was a definite force that turned him in that direction. He went and picked it up, and as soon as he picked it up, he felt that he and the author were connected, that they had a bond. There was something that he, even without knowing who he was, never having met, he knew that this person will give him what he wants. That there was this, he understood me. That is what he says, that he understood where he was coming from. And so the journey began, where he reads the book day and night over the next 3 days, then catches the bus, travels from one end, from New York to all the way to Los Angeles to meet his guru. 3-4 days, 4 nights non-stop, and he arrives. It's a very special journey that he takes. And we let us today, we have traveled with him. Today we will meet the master along with him. So let us first have Swamiji read out the chapter to us, and then we will discuss this. Just a minute. Just a minute. Just a moment.
Chapter 16. The Pilgrim Meets His Guide. I arrived in Los Angeles on the morning of Saturday, September 11th, 1948, exhausted from my long journey. There I took advantage of the first opportunity I had had in 4 days to shave and shower. I then continued south by bus, 100 miles to Encinitas, the little coastal town where, as I'd read, Yogananda had his hermitage. In the fervor of first reading, it had somehow escaped my notice that he'd founded an organization. Perhaps I had subconsciously tuned out this information because of my long-standing resistance to religious institutionalism. In my mind, his little seaside hermitage was all that existed of his work. It was to him I was coming, not to his organization. I arrived at Encinitas late that afternoon, too tired to proceed at once to the hermitage. I booked into a hotel and fairly collapsed onto my bed, sleeping around the clock. The next morning I set out for Self-Realization Fellowship Hermitage, walking perhaps a mile through a neighborhood of picturesque gardens, colorful with ice plant and bougainvillea. Many of the flowers I saw here were new to me. Their vivid hues made a gay contrast to the more conservative flowers in the East, a contrast I was to discover that extends to numerous other aspects of life on the two coasts. I approached the hermitage with bated breath. Yogananda, I recalled from his book, had once visited a saint without sending prior notice of his arrival. He had yet to reach the saint when the saint himself came out to welcome him. Is Yogananda too? I asked myself, know I was coming? And would he too come out and greet me? To the second question, anyway, the answer I received was no such luck. I entered the grounds through an attractive gate. On either side of me were large, beautifully kept gardens, trees on the left, beyond a small house. On the right, a pleasant lawn. At the end of the driveway stood a lovely white stucco building with a red tile roof. I imagined disciples going quietly about their simple chores inside, faces shining with inner peace. Did they know I was coming? I rang the front doorbell. Minutes later, a gentle-looking, elderly lady appeared. "May I help you?" she inquired politely. "Is Paramahansa Yogananda in?" My pronunciation of this unfamiliar name must have left something to be desired. Moreover, the white Palm Beach suit I wore didn't mark me as the normal visitor. I'd assumed mistakenly that Palm Beach was the accepted attire in Southern California, as it was in Miami and Havana. My unusual appearance, together with my obvious unfamiliarity with Yogananda's name, must have given the impression that I was a utility man of some sort. "Oh, you've come to check the water?" No, gulping, I repeated. "Is Paramhansa Yogananda in?" "What? Oh, yes. Oh, I see. No, I'm afraid he's away for the weekend. Is there something I can do for you?" "Well, yes. No, I mean, I wanted to see him." "He's lecturing today at the Hollywood Church." "You have a church there?" I let my astonishment show. I'd always imagined Hollywood as containing only movie studios. My astonishment must have struck my elderly hostess as unseemly. After all, why shouldn't they have a church in a big city like Hollywood? Soon it became clear to me that I wasn't making the best possible impression. Well, I thought, perhaps it did seem a bit strange, my bursting in here and asking to speak to the head of whatever organization there was here, and worse still, not even realizing that he had an organization. My companion drew herself up a little stiffly. "I want to join his work," I explained. "I want to live here." "Have you studied his printed lessons?" she inquired, a trifle coolly. My heart was sinking. "About 4 years." 4 years? Why, this was out of the question. As I look back now on that meeting, I think she was probably only trying to temper what must have seemed to her my absurd presumption in assuming I had merely to appear on the scene for me to be welcomed with joyous cries of "You've arrived!" In fact, the requirements for acceptance were not so strict as she'd made out. It is usual, however, and also quite proper, for the spiritual aspirant's sincerity to be carefully tested. It looked less than proper to me at the time, however. Only later did I learn that this first person to greet me had been Sister Gyanamata, Paramahansa Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple. She herself, as it happened, having been married, had had to wait years before she could enter the hermitage. The mere prospect of a wait must have seemed to her completely normal and not very much of a test. Well, I reflected rebelliously, this was not Yogananda's verdict. Swallowing my disappointment, I inquired how I might get to the Hollywood Church. She gave me the address and a telephone number. Soon I was on my way back to Los Angeles. On the way there, I alternated between bouts of indignation at her presumption and desperate prayers to be accepted. This was the first time in my life I had wanted anything so desperately. I simply mustn't be refused. At one point, thinking again of my elderly informant, my mind was once again waxing indignant when suddenly I remembered her eyes. They had been very calm. Even, I reflected, with some astonishment, wise. Certainly there was far more to her than I'd noticed in the urgency of my desire. Forgive me for my misjudgment, I prayed mentally. It was in any case wrong of me to think unkindly of her. She was only doing her duty. I sense now, however, that she is a great soul. Forgive me. A cloud seemed suddenly to lift within me. I knew in my heart that I'd been accepted. Arrived in Los Angeles, I checked my bag at the bus depot and proceeded at once to 4860 Sunset Boulevard, the address of the church I was seeking. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The morning service had ended long since, and the building, apart from a small scattering of people, was empty. A lady greeted me from behind a long table at the back of the room. "May I help you?" I explained my mission. "Oh, I'm afraid you couldn't possibly see him today. His time is completely filled." I was growing more desperate by the minute. When can I see him? She consulted a small book on the table before her. His appointments are fully booked for the next 2.5 months, she informed me. 2.5 months? First I'd been told I couldn't join for 4 years. Now I was told I couldn't even see him for... But I've come all the way from New York just for this. Have you? She smiled sympathetically. How did you hear about him? I read his autobiography a few days ago. So recently, and you came just like that. She cooled a little. Usually people write first. Didn't you write? Bleakly I confessed I hadn't even thought of doing so. Well, I'm sorry, but you can't see him for another 2.5 months. In the meantime, she continued, brightening a little, you can study his lessons and attend the services here. Morosely I wandered about the church, studying the furnishings, the architecture, the stained glass windows. It was an attractive chapel, large enough to seat well over 100 people, and invitingly peaceful. An excellent place, I thought, for quiet meditation. But my own mind was hardly quiet or meditative. I was in turmoil. You must take me, I prayed. You must. This means everything to me. It means my whole life. 2 or 3 of the people sitting in the church were monks, whose residence was at the headquarters of Self-Realization Fellowship on Mount Washington, in the Highland Park section of Los Angeles. I spoke to one of them. Norman, his name was, tall and well-built. His eyes were yet kind and gentle. He talked a little about their way of life at Mount Washington and their relation as disciples to Paramhansa Yogananda. We call him Master, he told me. From Autobiography of a Yogi, I already knew that this appellation, which Yogananda used also in reference to his own guru, denoted reverence, not menial subservience. How deeply Norman's description of Mount Washington attracted me. I simply had to become part of this wonderful way of life. It was where I belonged. It was my home. Norman pointed out 2 young men seated quietly further back in the church. They want to join the monastery too, he remarked. How long have they been waiting? Oh, not long, a few months. Disconsolately, I wandered about a while longer. Finally it occurred to me, novel thought, that perhaps I simply wasn't ready, and that this was why the doors weren't opening for me. If this were true, I decided, I'd just go out and live in the hills near Hollywood, come to the services regularly, study the lessons, and, I sighed, wait. When I was ready, the Master would surely know it and would summon me. With this resolution in mind, and with no small disappointment in my heart, I made for the front door. No doubt I'd needed this lesson in humility. Perhaps things had always gone too easily for me. Maybe I was too confident. At any rate, the moment I accepted the thought of my possibly not being ready spiritually, the situation changed dramatically. I had reached the door when the secretary, Mary Hammond I later learned her name was, came up behind me. "Since you've come such a long way," she said, "I'll just ask Master if he'd be willing to see you today." She returned a few minutes later. "Master will see you next." Shortly thereafter I was ushered into a small sitting room. The Master was standing there, speaking to a disciple in a white robe. As the young man was about to leave, he knelt to touch the Master's feet. This was, as I had learned from Yogananda's book, a traditional gesture of reverence among Indians. It is bestowed on parents and other elders, as well as, and particularly, on one's guru. A moment later the Master and I were alone. What large lustrous eyes now greeted me! What compassionate sweetness in his smile! Never before had I seen such divine beauty in a human face. The Master seated himself on a chair and motioned me to a sofa beside him. What may I do for you? For the third time that day these same gentle words, but this time how fraught with meaning. I want to be your disciple. The reply welled up from my heart irresistibly. Never had I expected to utter such words to another human being. The master smiled gently. There ensued a long discussion, interspersed by long silences, during which he held his eyes half open, half closed, reading me as I well knew. Over and over again I prayed desperately in my heart, you must take me. I know that you know my thoughts. I can't say it outwardly, I'd only burst into tears. But you must accept me, you must. Early in the conversation he had told me, I agreed to see you only because Divine Mother told me to. I want you to know that. It isn't because you've come such a distance. 2 weeks ago, a lady flew here all the way from Sweden after reading my book, but I wouldn't see her. I do only what God tells me to do. He reiterated, Divine Mother told me to see you. Divine Mother, as I already knew from reading his book, was the way he often referred to God, who, as he said, embraces both the male and the female principles. There followed some discussion of my past. He appeared to be pleased with my replies, and with my truthfulness. I knew that already, he once remarked, indicating that he was only testing me to see if I would answer him truthfully. Again a long silence, while I prayed ardently for acceptance. I'm taking fewer people now, he said. I gulped. Was this remark intended to prepare me for a letdown? I told him I simply could see nothing for myself in marriage, or a worldly life. I'm sure it's fine for many people, I said, but for myself I don't want it. He shook his head. It isn't so fine for anybody as people make out. God for everyone is the only answer. Anything less is a compromise. He went on to tell me a few stories of the disillusionments he had witnessed. Then again, silence. At one point in our discussion he asked me how I had liked his book. Oh, it was wonderful. That, he replied simply, is because it has my vibrations in it. Vibrations? I'd never before thought of books as having vibrations. Clearly, however, I had found his book almost alive in its power to convey not merely ideas but a new state of awareness. Incongruously, even absurdly, it now occurred to me that he might be more willing to take me if he felt I could be of some practical use to his work. And what did I know? Only writing. But that surely was better than nothing. Perhaps he was in need of people with writing skills. To demonstrate this ability, I said, Sir, I found several split infinitives in your book. 22 years old, literarily untried, but already a budding editor. I've never lived down this faux pas. But Master took it with a surprised, then a good-humored smile. The motive for my remark was transparent to him. More silence, more prayers. All right, he said at last, you have good karma, you may join us. Oh, but I can wait, I blurted out, hoping he wasn't taking me only because I hadn't yet found any other place to live. No, he smiled, you have good karma, otherwise I wouldn't accept you. Gazing at me now with deep love, he said, I give you my unconditional love. Immortal promise. I couldn't begin to fathom the depth of meaning in those words. Will you give me your unconditional love? Yes. And will you also give me your unconditional obedience? Desperately though I desired to be accepted by him, I had to be utterly honest. Suppose some time I asked, I think you're wrong. I will never ask anything of you, he replied solemnly, that God does not tell me to ask. He continued, when I met my master Sri Yukteswar, he said to me, allow me to discipline you. Why, sir? I inquired. Because, he replied, in the beginning of the spiritual path, one's will is guided by whims and fancies. Mine was too until I met my guru, Lahiri Mahashai. It was only when I attuned my will to his wisdom-guided will that I found true freedom. In the same way, if you attune your will to mine, you too will find freedom. To act only on the inspiration of whims and fancies is not freedom but bondage. Only by doing God's will can you find what you are seeking. I see, I replied thoughtfully. Then from my heart I said, I give you my unconditional obedience. My Guru continued, when I met my master, he gave me his unconditional love, as I have given you mine. He then asked me to love him in the same way, unconditionally. But I replied, Sir, what if I should ever find you less than a Christ-like master? Could I still love you in the same way? My master looked at me sternly. I don't want your love, he said. It stinks. I understand, sir, I assured him. He had struck at the heart of my greatest weakness, intellectual doubt. With feeling, I said to him, I give you my unconditional love. He went on to give me various instructions. Now then, come kneel before me. I did so. He made me repeat in the name of God, Jesus Christ, and the rest of our line of gurus, the vows of discipleship and of renunciation. Next he placed the forefinger of his right hand on my chest over the heart. For at least 2 minutes his arm vibrated almost violently. Incredibly, from that moment onward my consciousness in some all-penetrating way was transformed. I left his interview room in a daze. Norman, on hearing that I'd been accepted, embraced me lovingly. It was unusual, to say the least, for anyone to be accepted so quickly. A few moments later, Master came out from behind the open curtain on the lecture platform. Smiling at us quietly, he said, "We have a new brother."
What a beautiful chapter. Okay, so here we are on the first page of this chapter where he says that where he's expecting, just like Yogananda went to Himalayas and the sleepless saint Ram Gopal Majumdar met him halfway through, when he was approaching. So here he's imagining that, maybe when I go, Yogananda will come out like that. But he says, and there's this expectation, will he come? Will he come? Will he be there? But this is something that, we all need to realize that God, no two people will have the same experience of God. As Master says that every God, when he created this universe, every atom was endowed with individuality. And when that happens, each one of us is different. Each atom is different. So each one of us is different. And each one of us, God is expressing through us in his own unique way. So our experience, no two persons' experience of God will be same. That we have to understand, especially, when we are on this path and somebody starts saying, I saw light, or, I had this experience. Immediately we start feeling, I don't feel anything. Do you think, I'm not doing well enough probably? Maybe, I'm not good enough on this path. So we all need to realize God sings his individual tune through each one of us. We just have to find which one is that. And we just keep waiting for that and also it's not a passive wait. It's dynamically working, doing our part, meditating, doing the techniques that our Guru has given us. And then, patience helps. So then we see this beautiful interaction he has with Sister Gyan Mata, where he tells that she was much later, after he has joined the path, he realizes that who he had met was Sister Gyan Mata. He says, Paramahansa Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple And she says that, and he says that she herself had to, I mean, Sister Gyan Mata was almost more than 60 when she finally came, when she was a married woman, she has a son. And after her husband passed, is when she came and joined this path. And she was, as I said, more than 60, and she was not very well also. Health-wise also, she was not used to keep well, but she was always serving Master. She was, I mean, even if her body didn't permit her, she would be constantly serving, running here. The moment he would say, or, you know, she understood. And there was always this beautiful communication without having to say anything. Even in silence, they both communicated well. She was so tuned into her Master that she knew. And when she wrote something, you know, she knew that the letter has reached Master. There was that kind of attunement she had with her Guru. And one day she, I mean, we will read about it later. She wasn't very well. Master had called. So one of the nuns who was taking care of her said, sister is not feeling very well. And she said, who is that? Is that the Guru Master? She said, when he calls, say yes and make it snappy. When the Guru calls, say yes and make it snappy. That was her level of seva, her level of commitment to her Guru. I mean, it's an amazing statement, actually, that this is something all of us who are on the path and trying to understand how to, you know, go about it. When Guru calls, when Guru says something to do, for us to do, say yes and do it, make it snappy. So here he is. He because she had, you know, kind of told him, no, you can't join. You need to be reading the lessons and all. So he's kind of a little bit indignant. So on his way to the Hollywood church, he's still having those thoughts. And then suddenly he says, I remembered her eyes. They were very calm. And to his astonishment, he says, wise. And suddenly he realized that he was wrong. You see the shift in his attitude here, where the shift in his attitude came because he was sensitive, he was listening. So that moment he realized that, no, I was wrong. She wasn't. She was doing her job. I was judging her. And the moment he realized that, he mentally, asked for forgiveness from her. He says, forgive me for my misjudgment. It was in any case wrong of me to think unkindly of her. She was only doing her duty. I sense now, however, that she's a great soul. Forgive me. And this is the most important part. He says, a cloud seemed suddenly to lift within me. I knew in my heart that I had been accepted. Now, this is very important. A cloud seemed suddenly to lift. Whenever we are holding any negative thoughts about people, we are judging people, we are being critical. What it means is, like, there is this cloud on our heart, on our consciousness, that's kind of, blocking that light to come in for, for us to have a very uplifted this thing. But the moment he shifted that attitude, the moment he let that attitude go, he says, I knew in my heart I had been accepted. So we have read in Autobiography of a Yogi also, and here also, that Master knows one. I mean, later on we will read also that when Master says that I know all your thoughts. And also we know from reading autobiography that the relationship between a guru and a disciple is not of this lifetime only. Not just because I come in and I start taking classes and that is when I decide to have a guru. No. As the Indian scriptures say, that when God created this universe and, all the souls were put out into this world of Maya, a guru is assigned to the soul. Each soul is assigned a guru. The guru travels with us eternally with us till, we are ready to accept him. We magnetize by our acceptance, by our receptivity. We we have been given the free will to accept or reject. So he is watching over us without entering. He will only enter when we are ready. The guru enters when the disciple is ready, right? But he is always there. So this is where the moment he says that shift happened in his, in his attitude, he says, I knew in my heart I had been accepted. The guru was probably testing, right? Is he, letting it go? So there he is, and then it's again a very important thing that where Sister Gyan Mata says that you need to get all those lessons, and this you can't just meet him. It takes at least 2.5 months or months before. And Norman also says that there are some guys who were sitting there who were waiting for few months. But here, the moment he comes, and again here he's like feeling miserable. Then he says, okay, he again has an attitude. He's constantly watching himself, right? So he has a shift here again where he was feeling very bad. Then he says, okay, what do I think that I walk in and the whole world will come and meet me? He says, probably I simply wasn't ready. So I'll just take a place nearby and come for the services. Again, that shift happened, no attitude shift. He said, no doubt, I had needed this lesson in humility. Attitude shift happened, and this lady then comes and says, okay, you have come from so far, so let me see if he is willing to meet you. It is not just by chance that lady had a change of heart, right? She has not done that for the other two men who are sitting there, right? So, so she goes in and comes out and says, Master will meet you. Now here, sit up straight, close your eyes, gaze up at the point between the eyebrows. I'll read this out. It is this moment that Swamiji went and met our Guru. Swamiji, for us, is a window to our Guru. The moment he met and he was accepted, the seed of all our discipleship was planted in that time, in that moment. So just close your eyes. Visualize this scene. We have seen this also in the movie Answer. Otherwise also, just imagine this room, visualize this room. Shortly thereafter, I was ushered into a small sitting room. The master was standing there. Just watch him standing there, speaking to a disciple in a white robe. As the young man was about to leave, he knelt to touch the master's feet. This was, I had learned from Yogananda's book, a traditional gesture of reverence among Indians. It is bestowed on parents, other elders, as well as and particularly on one's guru. A moment later, the master and I were alone. Just savor that moment. Feel yourself also there in that room. Even as Master and Swamiji were alone in that young 22-year-old Donald Walters and Paramahansa Yogananda in that room. Now focus on Master's eyes. What large, lustrous eyes now greeted me. What compassionate sweetness in his smile. Visualize his smile. Never before had I seen such divine beauty in a human face. The master seated himself on a chair and motioned me to a sofa beside him. Even as Swamiji was relating this, you could see his voice getting choked every now and then. Master says, what may I do for you? Swami Kriyananda says, I want to be your disciple. With all your heart, say this with Swami Kriyananda. I want to be your disciple. The reply welled up from my heart irresistibly. Never had I expected to utter such words to another human being. The master smiled gently. Feel his smile. Feel him smiling. in your heart center. Over and over again, I prayed desperately in my heart, you must take me. I know that you know my thoughts. I can't say it outwardly. I'll only burst into tears, but you must take me. You must. Plead with Master. Cry out to him. And we will discuss what he said afterwards, but first let us do this. Master says, now then, come kneel before me. Chest over the heart for at least 2 minutes. My conscience in some manner was transformed. In that moment that Swami Kriyananda was accepted, each one of us who came to this path through him was accepted. Master saw each one of us. The seed of our discipleship was planted even before our birth, even in that moment. Feel it. Gently open your eyes. It's a very, very powerful moment, powerful chapter. And tonight, I would suggest that before you go to sleep, take out your discipleship certificate and read that discipleship vow that each one of us repeated and the Acharya told us to. That's exactly what Master asked Swami Kriyananda to say. And we made a promise that day of discipleship. And what was it? We will just go through it once. And Master said, he said, I agreed to see you only because Divine Mother told me to. If we are all here on this path, if we have all been accepted as a disciple, it's only because there was a divine sanction. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't because I happened to see a Google advertisement, or my friend told me, or various reasons. It was all divinely guided that we are here on this path. It's a very blessed life if we have been accepted as a disciple. Probably that was only purpose of this incarnation for each one of us. And he says, but 2 weeks ago, a lady flew here all the way from Sweden. So it wasn't because he had come all the way from New York that he was being met. She had come all the way from Sweden, but I wouldn't see her. I only do what God tells me to do. That is the difference between, later on we will see what Sri Yukteswar also explains. Masters don't do because he likes or he doesn't like somebody. They do only if there is a divine sanction, if God tells them to. So he said, when Swami Kriyananda said, I loved, I was, the book, when he asked to find the book, he said, oh, it was so nice and all. And he said, Master says, yes, that is because it has my vibrations in it. Now we have discussed this before also. Everything has a vibration, right? Any kind of book we read, what kind of programs we see, what kind of music we hear, each carries its own vibration on which it is, the consciousness on which it is operating on, and especially, on the book vibrates on the on which level the author is. So if it is a very low kind of, very dark kind of book, or if the person who wrote it is very dark, we will somehow, absorb those kind of vibrations. So it's very important throughout the day. Now we are all, trying to walk this path, a spiritual journey. We are all aspiring yogis to always be aware what kind of books we read, what kind of music we listen to, what kind of thoughts we are with throughout the day, what kind of programs we watch, what kind of people we hang around with. Master said satsang, that is why he said environment is stronger than willpower. He wasn't just talking about, people around us as an environment. Everything matters, right? So here, that's where he says this. When we read autobiography, we feel uplifted. Even one page, we feel uplifted. Why? Because it has Master's vibrations in it. So he says, Swamiji at that moment says, I didn't understand, because he says, I never before thought of books as having vibrations, but I had found his book almost alive in its power. He did sense something to convey not merely ideas, but a new state of awareness, right? So here again, Master said, first he said that I met you because Divine Mother told me to, and he also accepted him because he says you have karma. So again, these are very important things. One day, one of the monks said, am I a bad person, or so he very strongly said, remember one thing, that you need to have very, very, very good karma. And he was like very loud, and he said, even to want to know God. So that is what, billions of people out there, how many are actually sitting and reading these books, or trying to read? How many are doing that, right? So obviously we have been given that opportunity to do is probably because of some good karma that we have brought into this lifetime. The whole point is, having brought it in and come to this position where the Guru accepts us, what do we do about it? Do we let it waste, or we really put in our part, our blessings? As Master said, my blessings are there, God's blessings are there. What is your blessings? And that is what we all need to do, right? So he said, when he also again said that, he said, okay, I accept you, I give you my unconditional love. I give, and then he asked, do you give me unconditional love? And then he said, do you give unconditional obedience? And Swami, being that intellectual young man, he says, what if, I think you are wrong? And Master's again saying, I will never ask anything of you that God does not tell me to ask. The Guru, a self-realized master, anybody else is different. Self-realized master, they don't have ego the way the rest of us have, right? They are pure channels. So what they ask of us is for our own highest potential, so that we reach our highest potential, we become our own masters. There's no whims and fancies, and that is why he said, Sri Yukteswar told me, allow me to discipline you. I said, why, sir? He said, because in the beginning of the spiritual path, one's will is guided by whims and fancies. I like this, I don't like this. This is this, I desire this, I don't like that. This I don't like. And that is what guides our decisions, right? Whether we want to talk to someone or we want something, everything is guided by whether I like or I don't like. So he says, mine too was, until I met my Guru, Lahiri Mahashaya. It was only by attuning my haphazard will to his wisdom-guided will that I found true freedom. If we want to find freedom, this is all we need to do. Attunement, attunement, attunement with our Guru. At all times, not just, only when I'm sitting and meditating, should I attune with the Guru? No. But every moment, every breath, every big or small decision, ask him. Any situation that we are in, ask him, what do I do? What would my master do? How would he, handle the situation? So the more we practice in mundane things, even it will become second nature for us to tune into that. Otherwise, when things are going tough, it's very difficult all of a sudden to remember what should I do, what should I do. No, it should become a practice every moment, practicing the presence of God and gurus. So by doing God's will, can you find what you are seeking? And what are we seeking really? We are seeking happiness. As Master said, everyone, there's only two things. They all only want two things: to find happiness and to escape suffering. And what the happiness we seek in this world is all temporary. It's there. It's very conditional. What the world will give us is very conditional. What all of us want is to be always happy, always joyful. That can only be found in God, because everything, this world is transient. How can something that is based on the principle of duality, how can it give us a permanence? So we have to go beyond it. And he says that he had also questioned his guru. He says, sir, what if I should ever find you less than a Christ-like master? Could I still love you the same way? And Sri Yukteswar said, I don't want your love. It stings. Only when he says that he struck, when he rejected that, he says he struck at the heart of my greatest weakness, intellectual doubt. All of us have that, right? We are all infested in that, with that doubt, intellectual doubt, and wanting to have an answer or a justification or a logic, rationalize everything. We come with a lot of baggages, right? So Master tells the story of this music teacher. Okay, so two students go to him and they want to learn music. And the music teacher said, okay, have you learned music anywhere? So this one boy says, no, I haven't learned. He says, okay, I'll charge you $10. And so the other guy, he says, yeah, I did learn some music and now I want to learn from you. He says, I'll charge you $20. He says, why? Master tells in his own way, right? Why? So this man says that $10 for teaching you music and $10 for you to unlearn what you have already learned. So that is why our master also has to work a lot on us, because we all of us come with so much of baggage, of prejudices, of intellectual doubts, everything. So he has to first make us unlearn all that before we are purified enough to accept what he has to give us. So, and that is why when we in the center we have this purification ceremony. It's really very helpful for us to keep offering that and allowing Master to work, do his part. So with that, and this is the beautiful part, the last part where he says, just visualize the day we all were accepted as his guru, we took our discipleship. He says, a few moments later, Master came out from behind the open curtain on the lecture platform. Smiling at us quietly, he said, we have a new brother. So this is how he would have, welcomed each one of us. Only thing is, he was not in body, and we are with our restless mind, have not been able to tune into his welcome. So, but every prodigal child who comes back, Master would have welcomed this way only. So, any thoughts, anything else anybody wants to add before we end today's beautiful session? Actually, it's a beautiful chapter. And as I said, please, yeah, sorry. Please,
You had talked a word of connection. Oh, sorry. Hello?
Yeah.
And it is very true now. I'm thinking that when we all picked up the autobiography of the yogi the first time, thinking of it, there was a very comfortable feeling, it was not like a book a new book or something like that. That word connection is very true with autobiography. Every time
Absolutely.
you read it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Rita, you were saying something.
Amazing.
I was just saying that this is one of the most moving chapters ever. And if you just close your eyes and just hear, I was closing my eyes and listening to Swamiji's voice when he was talking about how he was feeling. His voice was feeling wobbly and I was feeling like that from inside. No matter how many times you read it, you just feel that power in that. This is an absolutely amazing chapter.
Even
The best.
now, relating it, you can visualize him actually living that moment.
Yeah.
His voice choking and this
Yeah.
was
And that feeling of calmness and serenity has never been like this with any other chapter, you know? Yeah, you just want to actually go and, read your discipleship vows and just be with yourself.
Yeah.
yes.
It's so beautiful, so moving.
It is.
I agree too. Absolutely. The meditation was very helpful. Even that brief meditation, I think it's
Yeah.
very powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jayanti.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jayanti. Thank you.
What a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Guru.
Thank you, ma'am.
That